Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's SBL webinar. It's good to have everyone on board. My name is Lanre Sosanya, and um, I'm going to be the one having these conversations with you for today. But I just want to be sure. I know Richard can hear me, but I just want a couple of people to maybe drop messages in the chat box or unmute yourself and just let me know if you can hear me. I just need to be sure that other people can hear me apart from Richard.
Yes, we can hear you, Lanre.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes, can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right. Once again, welcome to today's session. Um, today's session is going to be essentially an introduction into what the paper SBL is all about, and also conversations around what is expected from each and every one of you as far as the paper is concerned. If you are preparing for the exam, as well as I would also be covering conversations around um, what you should be expecting should you make a decision to attend this session at MAT Abacus. I'm trying to see if I can get you to see me through um, another screen. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I can see Richard's message in uh, the chat box. If you can't get to see, it's just unfortunate that you're unable to see me um, now, but at least you've seen a picture of what I actually look like. Once again, welcome to this session. Um, Now, without wasting too much of your time, the emphasis for this session is for us to have conversations around what the paper SBL Strategic Business Leader paper is all about. Help us to be able to understand the paper itself, be able to master the exam, and most importantly, we want you to be able to pass this exam with great confidence. So I'm going to try to, as much as possible, introduce you into the paper, give you an idea, and then I will also be having conversations that help you to understand that as far as this paper is concerned, when you come to MAT Abacus, what exactly are you going to be getting from us? What we're going to cover today would cut across understanding paper SPL Strategic Business Leader. We're going to be able to, we would also have conversations around why students fail. And a lot of reasons why students fail, you will see them, and that would make us talk about the concept about answering technique. And then there's also a section for time management, which I had actually taken it out, right? At first, I thought I was going to discuss about time management and all of that, but I decided to take it out as at the last minute because I feel, okay, well, in as much as it's good to discuss time management, we will talk about it, but I wouldn't want to discuss and focus on the solution that, in quotes, we have created at MAT Abacus that we believe strongly is going to actually help you when it comes to time management for the purpose of the exam. Um, All right. So I'm still trying to see if I could just get that video to show me, but my laptop is telling me not today, right? But for those who probably are still interested in seeing a glimpse of me, I signed on with another device, which hopefully you guys can see me. There's another device which I'm trying to show myself. All right. So great. Now, um, I'm also going to, because one of the things that I'm positive about is some of the people who are on this session right now, some of them are candidates that have written this exam before now. And, they've written this exam before now. And they probably might have not had a positive result, right? And then, some of them are trying to look at how they could redo this journey. So part of what we're going to try to cover is to look at, you know, some of the things that I feel they might have done wrong, and also to provide insight on how I believe you could address them. So those are some of the things that we're going to cover. So the first section is, you know, it's important for you to understand what strategic business leader paper is all about. Now, without trying to sound like an African politician, who is going to try to be boastful and then promise you heaven and earth, and then they fail to deliver. But I will tell you categorically that as far as the ACCA qualification exam is concerned, strategic business leader is a paper that stands you know, it stand in its own pedestal because the requirement, the rigor of that paper is a little bit different to the things that you have been accustomed to, both in ACCA as well as in the previous exams that you might have done or written at any given point in time. So that's why it's important for you to understand this paper and then also ensure that you get the necessary um, skills or understanding that is going to help you to beat this paper effectively. Now, by the time we're done with this webinar, we would have been able to, for this section under SBL, you would be able to understand what SBL actually tests as a paper. You would also be able to have an understanding of why the seemingly strong students actually do fail this exam. In my experience, I probably should have, maybe I should have done a little bit of introduction about myself. I guess it's because I don't usually try to focus on myself, but like I said earlier, my name is Lanre Sosanya. I'm a fellow of ACCA, and I've been teaching ACCA as I've been teaching in the ACCA professional exams cumulatively now since 2010. Yeah, my mathematics is terrible, so you guys can basically do a quick calculation about how long that I've been doing that, right? So I've been teaching ACCA for the last 16 years or thereabout. In this process of teaching ACCA, at some point, there was this initiative that ACCA used to do for um, papers, for SBL paper in particular, where you get to attempt mocks and then you send it to ACCA, and then there's a specialized team who are going to, review this and provide you feedback. Now, for quite a long period of time, um, up until when this ACC started giving personalized feedback, I was part of the team that was responsible for providing personalized feedbacks for students. So when sometimes you see me in the course of this session, and then I'm talking and saying a couple of things, and I'm telling you things about where candidates get it wrong, where students get it wrong, I just want you to understand that I'm not talking just from the perspective of the student that I have taught. I'm also talking about the perspective of various ACCA candidates that have attempted the official mock and they have gotten feedback from ACCA. I can categorically tell you that some of my experience are coming and stemming from this. So if you come to MAT Abacus, trust me, you're actually getting one of the best hands, well, if not the best hands in the African market as far as ACCA is concerned. So we're going to talk a little bit about how the ACCA exam is structured, the examiner's expectations. I will talk about the pre-scene, which is a concept that is unique to SBL. We'll talk about the pre-scene, and then we'll talk about how you could prepare for the exam. Now, the first thing that is important for you to understand is that as far as the strategic business leader exam is concerned, you are not going to necessarily pass the exam simply because you are the student. You are the student with the brightest um, knowledge. You could be smart and still fail ACCA exams. In fact, I've had interactions a lot of times with candidates, with students that you would naturally expect that when the result comes, these guys are the ones that are going to ace or clear the paper. And then you probably would see some people that you would feel, well, you know what, these people are likely going to struggle. But when the result comes, at the end of the day, sometimes those seemingly, those candidates that are seemingly going to struggle sometimes end up actually doing quite well. The key to SBL is you need to be able to um, use the right knowledge in the right situation in the right way. So you could have that knowledge and you still to come short as far as the exam is concerned. So it's very key for you to remember and understand this. Now, the first thing you need to understand is that the strategic business leader exam is an integrated single case study exam. Now, what does all this grammar that Lanre just said? What do they mean? What does it actually imply? It simply means that as far as the exam is concerned, you are going to get um, a single scenario where it's either you get information about a company and the information would center around the company itself, maybe like MAT Abacus. You get information about MAT Abacus's industry. You would get information about the country in which MAT Abacus itself is operating in. And they provide you all of those things. They provide you information about the organizational structures, information about what the government might be doing. You get information about what the people in the company is doing, all those things. And the expectation is you are supposed to then come into the exam and then be able to profile different solutions to that particular company. So it's very key for you to be able to remember that you are getting just a single integrated case study, which is designed to mirror the workplace. In fact, my advice, my recommendation that I would always tell you is that when you go into the into the exam and you're writing your SBL exam, you need to always remember that you are not just a student, a candidate solving a question. You need to actually remember that you are a consultant, you are a director, you are a manager, you are a professional, you are an expert whose responsibility it is to prefer solutions to a real life situations. Those are the kind of things you will see as far as the exam is concerned. SBL is not a traditional exam where you come with regurgitative learning. For instance, part of the things you will learn under corporate governance is you would understand that there are a set of guys called non-executive directors in a company. Now, the materials you would get that you would read going into the exam is going to tell you about, it would explain and define who are non-executive directors, and then it will tell you the roles of non-executive directors. It will tell you the benefits. Now, when you go into the exam, you are not going to see a question that would then say, who are non-executive directors and what are their roles? Or what are the advantages of non-executive directors? Those are not the kind of questions you will be seeing in the exam. Rather, the kind of questions you will be seeing in the exam is where the examiner would say, Lanre Limited or Lanre PLC. Or they will say that the management of Lanre PLC has recently attended a meeting or a webinar, just like you are attending now. And during those sessions, one of the speakers mentioned the concept of non-executive directors and their role in corporate governance, full stop. The management of Lanre PLC have agreed to some extent that there might be a need for them to appoint non-executive directors into the company. However, they are not convinced or sure of the relevance that non-executive directors would have if appointed. The examiner will say all of these things, and then the actual requirement will then say, required. Explain who are non-executive directors and how appointing non-executive directors could help Lanre PLC improve its performance. Or the examiner is asking, what are the impacts to Lanre PLC of embracing the appointment or the inclusion of non-executive directors on the board? Now, you see the difference. You have understood the topic, yes, but you have learned the topic rather, but in the exam, the examiner is basically saying, whatever it is that you have learned, how can you apply to a given scenario? So SBL exam is not, oh, what are the 5 characteristics of centralization? Let me cram it, let me put it in my head, and then I go into the exam and then I control copy and I control paste. In SBL, your ability to control copy and paste special is critical, right? For those of us who are conversant with productivity tools, you know what it is to paste special. We're basically saying you can't just take it garbage in, garbage out. You need to format it. You need to bring it to the required format that is going to be relevant. So that's what you're going to be expecting as far as SBL is concerned as an exam. So once again, to remind you, SBL exam is going to be a single integrated case study that is centered around one single business. You get information about the business, how the business started, every information that you reasonably need to know about that fictitious company, you would get it. And then all the tasks that you're going to be asked to do would reference that particular scenario. It's as good as the examiner. Imagine if the examiner says, oh, imagine the company in question is Microsoft. Bam. And that's it. And then the examiner will ask you questions around risk management, questions around corporate governance, questions around strategy, questions around internal audit, questions around technology, all centered on how they might be affecting Microsoft as a company one way or the other, and how the company is keen to actually improve performance. That is what you would get as far as the exam is concerned. So that's what you're going to be getting as far as the exam is concerned. So there's going to be multiple business problems that is going to span across strategy, risk governance, finance, technology, and then you're going to be expected to. In fact, you go into SBL. The way SBL works is that when you go into the exam as a candidate, see yourself as a consultant who wear many hats. You would see a scenario where you are the superstar in that organization, should in case you are an employee. So if the company says you are an employee, you are the superstar, everybody is coming to you for advice. So task one, for instance, would say, the managing director is attending a meeting with stakeholders where he is to discuss the proposed strategy that the company has recently chosen. He has approached you to help him draft an evaluation of the proposed strategy and help him make a recommendation if that strategy is indeed appropriate for the company. Now, the managing director will come to you for advice. In the same vein, you will see a task where they say the human resources director is considering implementing a talent management initiatives, but is concerned about the potential benefits and drawbacks of that introducing such a program by course at Lanre PLC. He has now approached you to help prepare a briefing note, a memo, a report that helps to address this. Every single person across leadership, governance, strategy, risk, audit, finance, technology, and then innovation will always come to you to ask you for help. So you're going to get 3 tasks, right? 3 tasks. And all these tasks are compulsory. And SBL also introduced something called the professional skills marks. Now, of the 100 marks that are available to you, 80 marks are going to be based on technical skills, and then 20 marks are going to be based on the professional skills. Now, what do we mean by the technical skills? The technical skill is where the examiner is essentially asking you the things you have read, apply your understanding of big data analytics. So this is where the examiner is trying to say, oh, a company is trying to adopt big data analytics. They would like you to explain to them what is big data analytics and what is the relevance of big data analytics in improving the company's performance. They will ask you those sort of questions, right? That's the technical skill. Professional skills is where the examiner is looking at your tone. How did you put down your answer? I'm sure you guys will agree with me that in the workplace, the way you will address a subordinate, someone who reports to you, is never the same way you would talk to someone that you report to. The tone is important. The audience is important. This is where the examiner is looking at the flow, the logical flow of your answer, right? Maybe the examiner says you carry out a financial and a non-financial evaluation of Lanre PLC's performance. And then you say, okay, under your evaluation, your first point is a point on financial evaluation. Your second point is a point on non-financial. Your third is non-financial. Your fourth is financial. Your fifth is financial. It's not making sense. The smart thing would have been for you to separate your answer into financial and non-financial. And then you do that as a flow. All of these things would influence whether you get 20 marks. And as you're going to see further, these 20 marks is actually spread across 5 different skills that you are expected to demonstrate. These skills includes your analysis skills, skepticism skills, commercial acumen skills, evaluation skills, and your communication skills. And it is important for you to be able to ensure you demonstrate all of these skills. Otherwise, 20 marks is gone. Now, if you think life is harder, getting 50 out of 100. Now imagine if 20 marks is gone and you need to now score 50 out of 80. Life is tougher. But the good thing is this. With my experience, with my guidance if you choose to attend tuition at MAT Abacus. One of the things I'm going to teach you is the ability. I'm going to teach you and show you the ability for you to be able to use the professional skills in a way that by the time you are solving a question, any given time, you will always maximize the professional skills marks. Now, imagine if you go into the exam and then you can easily score 20 marks already, then it becomes easier for you to be able to actually pass the exam. So this is a snapshot of the exam. Once again, 3 hours, 15 minutes, 3 compulsory tasks, 80 technical marks, 20 technical marks, making a total of 100 marks. And in order for you to pass, you need a 100 mark. And here is a picture of what the typical exam will look like. So this is what we're trying to say. This is a single integrated case study. You're going to have different exhibits. In this scenario, you have 4 exhibits. This is exhibit 1. This is your exhibit 2. This is your exhibit 3. This is your exhibit 4. And then you have the different task requirements. So you see task 1, task 2, and then task 3. Of course, the examiner will usually break some of these tasks into, task A Roman figure 1, task, task A Roman figure 1, A Roman figure 2, task B. And you can see the professional skills marks, like I told you earlier. Here's an example. Examiner says, professional skills marks are available for demonstrating evaluation skills. So the examiner says, if you can demonstrate an evaluation skills, I'm going to get you some marks. So professional skills marks are available for demonstrating evaluation skills in objectively appraising the implications of the internal control weaknesses identified, and then to make well-reasoned recommendations, and then you have 4 marks for it. What I'm telling you is that, you see, when you come to class, by the time we're done prepping you for the exam, you have learned the skills that would ensure that when you're solving this question, you will get this maximum 4 marks. You will get the marks, right? So that's that for the exam itself. At any point, I know it's a webinar, but sometimes I know, yeah, we could do questions at the end of the sessions, but I think I sometimes also like during the course of the session. So if I talk about 1 or 2 things and you feel you want more clarity, you want more clarifications, please feel free to raise your hand, ask me questions, or feel free to just unmute and then ask me questions. Right now, here at a glance is the various sections of the syllabus. You have leadership, you have governance, you have strategy, you have risk, you have technology and data, you have control and audit, you have finance. And then I missed out one part. That's the last one, and that's called innovation. Now, these are all the things that you're going to go through as far as the SBL syllabus is concerned. And all of these things. Now, from experience, and this again are the things you're going to get when you come for class, I'll be able to teach you. Now, remember I told you that SBL is all about applications. However, sometimes there are some areas of the syllabus that the way the contents of the syllabus is structured, no matter how tough or hard the examiner wants to make it, certain areas would still require the examiner to ask you questions where you bring that textbook knowledge. Now, I am able to tell you which of those areas and how do you even bring those textbooks knowledge into the exam. Those are some of the skills that you would be learning when you come to MAT Abacus for your tuition. So here at a glance is the 5 professional skills marks. Once again, analysis, commercial acumen, communication, evaluation, and skepticism. Again, there's a trick to being able to master these 5 professional skills. I can tell you for a fact that if you come into the class, I'm going to be able to help you understand and appreciate these professional skills marks in a way that at the end of the day, when you're solving questions, you don't need to think, worry, ask yourself, have I demonstrated or am I demonstrating these skills? Because you will actually be demonstrating it without even stressing yourself, right? So that's about that. In fact, from experience, I can also authoritatively tell you of the 5 skills when you're solving questions in the exam, it is actually only 2 skills that you need to actually worry yourself a lot and think, am I demonstrating them? The remaining 3, as long as you're answering the questions correctly, you will automatically be demonstrating them. So, how do you know the 3 that you will automatically demonstrate? How do you know the 2 that you need to do some specifics to demonstrate them? We will tell you all of these things when you come into the SBL class at MAT Abacus. For you to pass SBL exam, the simple formula is you must be able to get the technical knowledge, read, know, understand the content of the syllabus. When you then get into the exam, be able to apply to the scenario. In fact, the thing about SBL is one of the things I always ask my students is when you're faced with a question in SBL, it's important for you to understand that there are 2 approaches to solve a question in SBL. It's either you use what I call the common sense approach, or you use that um, frameworks and theoretical approach. What am I saying? There are some questions you see in SBL. The only way to maximize the marks, the only way to score correctly is for you to think of a model, maybe like Pestel, Porter's diamond, maybe you think of Amon's process strategy matrix, or maybe you think of something called Mendel's stakeholder mapping. If you do not use a framework to solve the question, you will not maximize marks. There are some questions that if you use a framework to solve them, you would actually be doing yourself a disservice. How do you know when to use common sense? How do you know when you should embrace the use of a theory, a tool? We'll tell you all of these things when you come into the session. Again, another key thing that we're going to teach you when you come into the SBL class is we're going to show you, we will not just talk about all these frameworks, models, tools, techniques. We'll also be able to break it down to you into a simple when to use them and when not to use them. These are things that, these are benefits that would accrue to you as a result of you deciding to take your tuition at MAT Abacus. Now, going to the second section of this slide, understanding the gap between knowledge and passing. This is where I'm going to begin to start talking to those who have written the exam before and they've failed. Some of the things that I'm saying here would also be relevant to those who are starting or who want to write the paper for the first time. Some people might have even tried to write the paper before, but by the time you read, you solve a question, and then you look at it and say, well, you know what? Every time when I looks to be, when I read, it's like the text is written in English. When I start solving the question, it looks like the questions are written in Spanish. And then when I want to put down my answer, it looks like my answer and in Arabic. You're confused, right? Some of the things I'm going to be saying under these sections is also going to be relevant to you. Because for SBL, knowing the syllabus is just one of the things you need to do. You see it here. You see it here. We said technical knowledge. So you need to know. But knowing the syllabus will not give you an automatic assurance that you're going to pass the exam. So this is where developing the skills, the competence to be able to pass the exam is critical. You can have the resources. It's the same thing with a company. A company may have the resources, but there is no guarantee that because a company has the resources, that company would automatically be the best in its market. I mean, for instance, I come from a country that is one of the top largest producer of crude oil in Nigeria. Sorry, in the world. Yet, up until last year, my country had no single refinery working, no refinery that can refine crude oil, up until a private company decided to come up and start doing that. So we had the resources, we had the crude, but when it comes to the capability to refine it, we couldn't. So if a country could be clueless despite having the resources, if a company could fail despite having the resources, you could also fail the SBL exam despite knowing the content of the exam. And that's part of the reasons why when you join us, we're going to be able to show you what you're doing wrong. This is a good example, for instance. A student is in an exam and the student is writing an answer and the student is arguing about, so let's say the question is talking about why a company should embrace differentiation. By the way, just to do a quick deviation, so that you can understand what differentiation is, again, it gives you a tiny little glimpse into what you will get, what you will benefit if you actually come to SBL class or tuition at MAT Abacus. Now, this is where we're going to be talking about how can a company be successful in the industry it has chosen. There's a guy called Michael Porter. Michael Porter came up with a theory, a model. The big grammatical name calls it the Porter's generic model. And according to Michael Porter says to be successful, a company must choose one of a cost leadership strategy or a differentiation strategy. Now, that's big grammar. And what we're going to do in the classes, we'll break this big grammar down. What is Michael Porter trying to say? Michael Porter is simply saying to be successful in business, a company must choose to either be cheaper or better. If you're cheaper, you go by way of cost leadership as a strategy. If you are better, you go by way of differentiation as a strategy. That is what Michael Porter is saying, right? Now, let's say a particular company is thinking, do I do differentiation or do I do cost leadership? And then the management has asked you, we are thinking of differentiation. We're thinking between choosing cost leadership and differentiation. We are not sure. Can you tell us which we should go for and demonstrate skepticism skill with respect to our ability to deploy that strategy? Now, the typical answer you would give if you've not been to SBL class at MAT Abacus is for you to say the company should use a differentiation strategy because differentiation can help it gain competitive advantage. And you are technically correct. But however, in the exam, if the examiner says there are 2 marks available, you have done enough to score between half a mark and 1 mark. You haven't done enough to score 2 marks. To score 2 marks, the better answer would be to say the company could pursue differentiation by developing a premium service based on its existing technological capabilities. Why? Doing this allow a higher selling price. And then remember, they say we should demonstrate skepticism. Skepticism is just a skill that says, you know what, as you're talking about all these things, also look at what could go wrong. And then you say, well, but management must assess whether customers will pay the premium and whether competitors can replicate the offering. That is how it works. don't just give a generic text-based answer, right, in the exam. Anytime you give an answer and then your answer looks like, well, this could be an answer for any other question, you could apply to any other company, then automatically you haven't done the right thing. Now, what are the 5 main reasons why students tend to fail SBL, which is important for those who are resitting and equally important for those who want to try it for the first time? The first problem is students go into SBL as a memory-based exam. I go there and then I commit to memory everything that I need to learn. In fact, some of you are so good at committing things to memory that you can sit in the exam, close your eyes, and you would be seeing your notebook at home. I wrote this on the right hand side at the upper half with a red pen. You will even see that image, right? But the problem is you might have that sharp memory, but the examiner is asking, how do you apply what you have written in red ink in that your book? How do you apply it to solve a problem in the exam? So if you're unable to apply what you have crammed, what you have committed to memory, it becomes an issue. And that's the problem. People memorize models, frameworks, but then when it comes to applying them, it becomes an issue. For instance, there's a model in the exam when the examiner is saying, when a company is saying, I have 2 strategic choices. I have 2 strategies. I don't know which one to pick. Maybe one, maybe 2 of them. How do I decide? There's something called the SFA criteria. We say, oh yeah, just ask yourself 3 important questions. Is this strategy suitable? Is it feasible? Is it acceptable? Now, you go into the exam having crammed this, having remembered, and then you ask suitable, feasible, acceptable, and then you move on. But one of the things you've forgotten is that if you are applying it, that framework says the right strategy must be the one that meets those 3 requirements. So, yes, you might know when a strategy is suitable, feasible, or acceptable, but are you able to identify when it meets all those 3 requirements? Because if it doesn't meet those 3 requirements, then it will not be the right strategy. Generic answers will get you nowhere. An answer that could apply to a bank, a hospital, a supermarket. It could even apply to MAT Abacus, or it can even apply to any company in Uganda. That takes you nowhere. It could apply to any company in Rwanda. It takes you nowhere, right? Sometimes students will ignore the requirements, and then what they do is to, for instance, the examiner says, evaluate an acquisition. What you do is to discuss acquisitions in general. You see, when they say evaluate an acquisition, the examiner is just saying this particular acquisition, this particular acquisition, like Canal France acquired multi-choice recently. Examiner says evaluate that acquisition. The examiner is saying, I just want you to tell me everything that you understand to give me an opinion on the acquisition of DSTV by Canal France. What you do instead is you start telling them about acquisitions in general. Start telling them the benefits of acquisitions, the advantages of acquisitions. Is that relevant to Canal France's acquisition of DSTV? If it's not, it's a waste of time. Sometimes you ignore the requiring rule. You tend to always think you are a student. You are not a student. You are the consultant. You are the director. Remember the role you have been given. That role is important. And one of the challenges that people also face is to overinvest. You're going to people tend to overinvest. You pick the first task and then you spend a lot of time, a lot of effort. All of these things, it affects you. Now, one of the things that we will be doing is, because the sessions, in case you guys don't know, if you're going to be attending tuition at MAT Abacus, it's going to be physical. It's a physical class. The webinar is online in preparation. The class is starting next week, Monday, and then I'm going to be live with you guys next week, Monday. One of the things we're going to be doing together in the class is we're going to together try to develop some answers. Sometimes when we're solving questions, we develop answers. I will take a look at what you are able to come up with, right? So we're going to be together. It's going to be physical. Class is going to be starting August, Monday, August the 3rd. We're going to be there and then we'll do all of these things and all of that. Now, one of the things that is also important to remember is that for SBL, there's a document that you're going to get before the exam. This document is called the pre-scene. So this is it here. Now, the pre-scene is where the examiner gives you information about a company. So you see it here, pre-scene about a company here called PSS, and then you see under the contents where they're talking about the introduction where they tell us about the company. You can see under there's a section where they talk about the industry, the overview, types of products, industry challenge, development. Now, what usually happens in the exam is that the information you have here in the pre-scene becomes the background, the backdrop for what you're going to do next. When you see the actual exam and then you start seeing the specimen. So for instance, when they tell you here, for instance, let's say task one. Task one says, prepare a report for the board which evaluates the opportunities and challenges which PSS must consider in relation to the proposed contract with Sealand. We're saying that even though you're using the exhibit, in this case, exhibit one, that talks about the contract, as you're doing this, don't forget anything that must have been said in the pre-scene that can impact on that particular contract. And this is one of the things that makes SBL also a little bit delicate. There are quite a lot of information. The pre-scene is usually about 11 pages. The exam itself is usually about 8 to 10 pages. So you're looking at between 20 to 24 pages of information in the exam. Now, there are some tricks that you can use to cover the pre-scene. These again are things that I'm going to show you. We're going to run through them together as we come into, when we start tuition together. Now, one of the mistakes a lot of students always make is to turn the pre-scene into a prediction exercise. I know some of you guys are experts with all those football gambling app, all those predictions. I know the ladies are not guilty, but I know the guys here. If you ask them now, over 2.5, over 1.5, go, no go, is their area of expertise. But please, you cannot use that particular skills for SBL because you see, the examiner can give you a pre-scene and give you multiple tasks with the same pre-scene. So you can't predict. Don't even stress yourself. In fact, one of the things I'm going to do in the regular class to demonstrate this to you is that we're going to solve a full case study question where you have the same pre-scene, but the task requirements are different. 3 different exams based on the same pre-scene. And none of the questions are all similar. That is to prove to you that it's a waste of time for you to try to predict the pre-scene to predict the exam once you get the pre-scene. Now, what I usually say is to advise you to, my golden rule really is if you don't want to stress yourself too much, once you get the pre-scene, turn the pre-scene into a newspaper. You will get it 2 weeks before the exam. Get the pre-scene, read the pre-scene at least twice a day. Once in the morning on your way to work, once in the evening before you go to bed. Do this consistently for 2 weeks. The content of the pre-scene is in your head. You don't need to put the numbers into your head because when you go into the exam, you will still get the pre-scene. But what it does is that if you know these things, it means that when you're solving the exam, you don't need to start going to the pre-scene to second guess, to check, to look for things to support your answer. You already remember the things they've said. However, one thing you could do is to read it in a way that you understand the story behind the person, understand the company's business model, understand the issues the company is facing, and then develop like a map that helps you to understand the flow. Again, all of these things we're going to do together. And in fact, when you attend tuition with us, one of the things that we're going to actually do is that at the end of the diet, when the actual present for the exam comes out, I'm going to break them down into a summarized document for you where you see the key things, the key information, the key things you need to know. And then we're also going to have a session where we're going to be reviewing that present. I'm not predicting what the examiner is going to ask you, but I'm going to be able to break it down to say, if you're seeing this, this is what could be. This is what you could be. This could be the implication. This is the kind of problem that might come up. This is the kind of solution you probably might be thinking. I'll break it down for you in the regular class, right? And here under this section, we're going to quickly talk about technique. Making you understand that techniques that you use matters as much as the technical knowledge that you apply. The techniques is important. In the exam, I would always recommend for you to always read the requirement first, identify what your role is, what is the deliverable. It's important to remember if the examiner says you should use a particular format, you must use that format, because any failure to use the format that the examiner has asked you to use, you are in trouble. If you do not use the format that the examiner has asked you to use, you're going to be in trouble. And you're going to see that shortly. When you're writing your answers in SBL, always ensure that your paragraph is able to help us see what the point is, what your answer is. How does that answer apply to the scenario? And most importantly, have you been able to do a proper analysis of the answer or implication evaluation? Now, in reality, when you answer a question, 1 and 2 must always happen. When you do 1 and 2, you see this number 2. Sometimes in doing this number 2, you are either doing one of 3, 4, 5, or sometimes you're doing all of them together. If I quickly go back to that scenario here, for instance, you will see here, by the time you give this kind of answer has been able to give you the point. The point is the company could pursue differentiation, right? And then how do you apply it to the scenario? By developing a premium service based on its existing technological capability, all right? And then, it allows for a higher selling price and all that. That could be either you doing your evaluation, that could be if you talking about the implication, or that could be you doing your analysis. So at the end of the day, it boils down to your answers must, we must be able to clearly see your answer, and your answer has to be applied to the scenario if you're going to be able to maximize your marks. Very important to also understand some of the verbs that are going to be, tested in SBL. It's important for you to remember what the examiner means when he says you should explain, or when he says, all these things are critical for you to remember. Again, don't forget.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, could you just go back to the slide that had uh, the points, the previous slide, just before you moved on to command verb matters. Before that.
This one, yes.
Yes.
This one? Okay, good.
Yes, just taking a note.
Okay, great. So, like I said, don't forget, when you're answering the question, it's not compulsory that you demonstrate 3, 4, and 5 all the time. You could just demonstrate one of them. Your application, your number 2, has to now help us either understand why that point matters, or tell us the implication of what you're saying, or better still, help us to, do an evaluation that allows us to be able to understand what management should ideally be considering and stuff like that. Right. So hope this is hope you've been able to take everything, Rooney.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Now, just a quick one. Professional skills marks are not bonus marks. They are part of the exam. They are embedded in the answers you provide, right? The way you provide your answer will automatically influence whether you score these marks or not. And here is a scenario where I've been able to, from experience of marking mock exams for SBL students in Africa, I've been able to, over time, been able to basically, come up with a three basic rule that basically says these are the ways you could maximize your professional skills marks. Now, one of them is what I'm trying to basically. Okay, yeah. So before I talk about those three basic rules, this is me just trying to show you how the marks available are usually broken down, right? So assume that the task you're looking at is a 10-mark question, and then you have 1 mark for every correct point that you get. Now, the examiner is going to give you a maximum of 4 marks for each professional skills marks. So let's say the examiner has said demonstrate skepticism, or let's say demonstrate commercial acumen. 4 marks are available for demonstrating commercial acumen. Now, to get 4 marks, you must ensure that you have put your answer in the required format. Yeah. So this is me giving you those 3 golden rules. I thought I was gonna not tell you guys for free, but let me be nice. It's my birthday month. I'm in excellent birthday mood because my birthday is just in a few days. So let me just give you guys straight away. The 3 golden rules is this. 1, use the required formats. Yeah, pardon me. Old man that I am, I totally forgot I have a simple technology that can, I have a simple device that can make me do what I'm doing now, better, faster. So the first thing is you must have put your answer in the required format. If the examiner says write a report, if your answer is starting without a report, the only thing you can get is either 1.33 or 0 marks, no matter how correct you are. That's the first rule. Based on my experience, this is not something ACCA said. This is what I know for a fact. Based on my experience, having marked thousands of scripts over the years for the ACCA official mock, I can categorically tell you the first problem a lot of you would have is not putting your answer in the required format. Once you do not put it in the required format, the maximum you can score is 1.33 or 0 marks. Now, number 7, the second point, the second thing is saying that, you see, when you solve questions, when the examiner says demonstrate commercial acumen, a lot of the time, the question has been set in a way that if you know what you are doing, every single answer, every single correct answer you put down, as far as that task is concerned, is helping you demonstrate that professional skills marks. Every time you put a correct answer, you are demonstrating commercial acumen, skepticism, evaluation, analysis. No, all those 5 skills you are demonstrating it, right? And most importantly, and the third rule is the one that I will not tell you people. You see, of all the professional skills marks, there are 3 of them, or rather, let me say 2 of them. Now, for the 5 professional skills marks, there are 3 of them that once you do 1 correctly, 2 correctly, you would have done enough to earn those 3 skills. There are 3 professional skills. Once you demonstrate 1 and 2, you put it in the required format, you give adequate number of points, 7 points for 4 marks, 5 to 6 points for 2.66 marks, 3 to 4 points for 1.83 marks, and then less than 2 for 0 marks. If the mark is 10 marks and it's 1 mark per point, you would have done enough to score the 3 professional skills. However, there are 2 important professional skills marks. If the examiner cannot see it 3 times, maybe a sentence, maybe a paragraph, maybe a phrase, if he cannot see them 3 times, you will not score 4 marks. If you cannot see them 2 times, you will not score 4 marks. If he does not see them, at least once, you will not score them, right? If you want to know which one of those cases, what this basically makes you understand and let you know is this. It means that in reality, if you're going into the exam, there are only 2 professional skills marks that you need to actually worry yourself about knowing how to demonstrate. Only 2. If you want to know this, meet me during the regular class, starting from August 3rd, live in Kampala. And I made to understand that some people might actually be joining us from Rwanda. Some people might be on this webinar also from Rwanda. I'm also going to be physically present in Rwanda um, um, during the course of this diet as we undertake this. So it's going to be a physical class where you have access to me. And one of the things you're also going to get is you're going to actually have access to me both inside and outside of the classroom. I am a firm believer that your learning, once you pay tuition for MAT Abacus, I am a firm believer that your access ends when you pass. So whether you see me physically in class, if you see me on the road, on a border, you can stop me and ask me questions. I would answer you, right? I would answer you. I'm not an African politician. I would answer you anytime. There'll be WhatsApp group that we're going to have conversations. Send me a message in the middle of the night. I don't sleep. I'm a wizard. I'm a member of a coven, so we don't sleep. You call me, I probably will be in the coven meeting. I would answer you. A lot of you are familiar with Nigerian movies, isn't it? You know us, witches, wizard. We go to meeting in the middle of the night. So send me questions about SBL. I might even table it before the witches and wizard, and then they can just help you, right? So this is just the 3 golden rules for you once again. You must ensure that you put your answer. If you want to maximize your skills, is it in the right format? Yes. Have you raised sufficient points? Yes. And then, have you been able to demonstrate those skills, right? So that's basically that. And then just again, for those who have failed before, you have failed before doesn't necessarily mean that the journey ends for you and all of that. You fail simply because sometimes you have the wrong exam technique, time management is the issue, or your answers are too generic, or you are not able to maximize your professional skills marks. Like I said, when you join, these are the things that we're going to develop skills that will help you to be able to develop it. But one of the things you could also do from your end is to be able to ask yourself, why do you think you actually fail, right? And then be able to focus on your weak areas and rebuild them, even if it means having to come to tuition to be able to rebuild these your weak areas. Practice differently. You see, the problem sometimes when we say some of you should practice questions is you sit back, you read the question, and then you look at the ceiling, you look at the roof, you look at the cloud, and then you start talking to the cloud, talking to the roof, talking to the ceiling, and saying what the answer is. And then when you're done, you go and check the examiner's suggested solution. And then you're seeing what the examiner is saying, and then you're saying, hey, I said this now. If I had answered it correct, if I had taken time to write it down, this is exactly what I would have said. It's a lie. That's not what you would have said. I was a student like you. I wrote a particular paper 3 times before I passed. I wrote ACCA from scratch. I failed only once till I got to that particular paper, which was my last paper. I wrote that last paper 3 times. The first time I didn't put in a lot of effort. I got 46. So I said to myself, I was carried away and I got 46. Imagine now that it's the last paper. If I put effort, I probably will score 98. Well, the examiner says, well, we like the idea of 8, but we just don't like the 9 before the 8. So they took away 9 and then they gave me 4. So I got 48. At that point, I started questioning myself if I really have what it takes to be an ACCA chartered accountant. But I went back to the drawing board. What did I do? I did something different. I started solving the questions, write the answers down. Then I go and look at the suggested solutions and then I read. And that's when I knew I was in trouble. Because apparently, every time the examiner is asking me a question, it's like the examiner is asking me to drive to Ginger, right? But every time I am putting down the answer, I'm actually driving all the way to Entebbe, totally different routes. So that's one of the things that I was able to map out simply because I was actually practicing questions differently. This happens even to the best of us, so I know exactly what I'm saying. So if you come for tuition, tuition is going to be able to help you to structure what you should study, when and how. There are some things that are in your syllabus that are just there for knowledge purpose. They are not going to be examinable. But how would you know? I can tell you, I've been teaching SBL technically since 2010. Why did I say technically? SBL used to be 2 separate papers called paper P1 and paper P3. Then in 2018, they were joining into one. I have been teaching paper P1 and paper P3 since 2010. And when it was joined and became SBL in 2018, I have continued to teach this paper. So I know what would be tested, what could be tested as much as possible. But you would not know. You read all these things, right? I will let you understand them better. Tuition is going to give you simplified explanation for complex concepts. We're going to make it more practical for you. We'll show you how to apply theory to scenario, how to do your analysis and arrive at the right conclusion. You'll be exposed to different business situations. In fact, one of the things I can even tell you for free is by the time you're done with my SBL class, when you start talking about strategy in the business world, a lot of people will be wondering when you went to Harvard without them knowing. Why? Because I will always give you real life situations. I will tell you companies like Tesla, Microsoft. I would even tell you companies that are based in Uganda, what they are doing, how they are doing, what is their relevance to the things you're learning. In fact, some of the companies some of you are working in or you're planning to work in at some point will also be part of the companies that we're going to be discussing and using as examples as we go on. Most importantly, we will give you questions to practice and you will get feedback. I'm going to give you personalized feedback for those who attempt questions that I give you. You're going to get a lot of that. It's something that would consistently happen. You know, you're going to get that consistently, right? You're going to consistently get that. You're going to also get a structured timetable. You would, in fact, you're going to be getting a study plan. You know, of course, exam strategy. I've told you about that. You're going to get a study plan that is effectively going to be showing you what each month, by the end of August, where should you be? What should you have learned? By the end of September, where should you be? What have you learned? All of these things are blank here. But by the time you come in for tuition, you would be able to see what you should be doing by this, period and all of that, right? Most importantly, SPL is not just a paper that is meant for you to just go there, write an exam and pass, right? You see, the things that we're going to cover, the way we're going to teach you SBL, we're going to teach you things in a way that you would be ready even outside. Once you're done with ACCA, you're going to be done ready for the exam. In fact, SBL was created by ACCA simply because they want students to be able to actually demonstrate their ability to solve real life, problems, real life situations. And that's the whole essence of SBL. Remember, when you go into the exam, as far as SBL is concerned, remember, don't think like a student or a candidate. You are instead a professional. You are an advisor, a consultant. You are a manager. You are a finance a professional. You are a future business leader. So don't think it's just an exam you're writing. Even right there in the exam, think as a professional, and you're going to be able to, deal with SBL. Now, if you're new to SBL, when you look at the syllabus, when you look at the notes, you would feel intimidated by the syllabus size. Fear not, right? To fulfill all righteousness, we will give you electronic versions of approved learning content from BPP. You would have access to, these things. But however, what I've also done is that I'm going to provide you with class notes that has also summarized the things you probably would have spent too much time reading. So you could read those class notes that are prepared by me, which you can only get, and then you can use the content of the class notes to actually prepare yourself. If you need more things, you want to understand more things, you want to learn more things, then you can always go in, you can always go in and then, study from BPP to give you more information, right? For those who have written this and they failed before, remember your previous result is not your identity. A failed attempt is information, it's not a verdict. You failed before doesn't mean you fail. You would always fail. Like I told you guys, I did ACCA from scratch. Only failed once before I got to my last paper, and then I wrote my last paper um, 3 times. 46 the first time, 48 the second time, and then the last time I eventually passed. And this is me, who is now teaching this same ACCA since 2010. If I could do it, then you can do it, right? So remember, the preparation for the SBL journey is going to begin as far as MAT Abacus is concerned from the 3rd of August 2026. Every week between August and December matters to us. So the earlier you begin, the more weaknesses that we're going to be able to identify and correct, right? So remember, when you join us, you're going to get full syllabus coverage, practical explanations, would dissect and bring to the bare minimum pieces the professional skills marks. We're going to give you a lot of practice, and then you're going to get personalized feedbacks. And that essentially is all we need to discuss today as far as this webinar is concerned. So once again, like I said, I will be joining you guys physically, live and direct, right from August 3rd, which is next week, Monday. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me, questions, clarifications, inquiries, or maybe objections. Maybe some people would say, there are some things you've said that I don't think I kind of agree with. Yep. Any comments, questions?
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening, Claire. You can go ahead.
I wanted to inquire whether we are going to have this presentation on the LMS.
Oh, this particular slide. This slide.
Yeah,
yes, I will make it. It would be available on the LMS.
All right.
By tomorrow, for those who had made payments, who had made registrations, you're going to have access to these documents on the LMS. We'll make it available on the LMS. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions, clarifications, comments? Because in the absence of anything, that will be all for today. So till we meet again on Monday, same time. Thank you guys for taking your time to attend these sessions. Thank you for starting with me and then also staying till the end of the session. Thank you and do enjoy the rest of the evening.